Alzbeta, welcome.
Thank you.
Alzbeta, you are the CEO of the International Fertilizer Association. Can you tell in a nutshell what the IFA is doing?
Thank you, Marcel. Thanks for the invite to this podcast. International Fertilizer Association is almost 100-year-old association dealing with companies that have anything and everything to do with plant nutrients. We have a very simple mission in the world, and that is to help feed the world sustainably. We encompass about 500 companies from around the world, and we are the only global fertilizer association in the world.
And I understand you have recently been to a seed congress, to the Congress of the International Seed Federation, ISF. What brought you from the fertilizer side to a seed congress?
It was a delight to be at the ISF 100-year anniversary. And what is really, really important is that we work across the value chain. Fertilizers, in and of themselves, are not going to do much if we don't have high quality seeds, if we don't have healthy soils, if we don't have water, if we don't have the environment that is conducive to good agriculture. So, being with our sister organization, ISF, was a true privilege and a pleasure to learn about the latest in seed technology, latest in environmental approaches that seed companies use, and how they're going to work together with us, the fertilizers, plant nutrients, to make sure that we produce our food sustainably.
Great. It was great to see you there, Alzbeta. Um, I think most people know that fertilizers have been crucially important for the past centuries or even longer, I would say, to boost yields. And with that, to stave off hunger and save billions of lives. But lately, there's been more pressure on, let's say, all the input factors, crop protection, products, fertilizer. How do you see the role of fertilizer as we go forward?
Indeed, Marcel, fertilizers are responsible for about a half of what we all eat every single day, about 50% of food production. And it's hard to imagine a world without plant nutrients. Plants need nutrients just like we need vitamins and nutrients every day. The issue is that one of the key nutrients, nitrogen, is extremely energy intensive. That's just how physics and chemistry works. And so we have to find a better way to produce it. We have to try to produce it with the least possible environmental footprint. And on the other side, in usage, which is a scope 3 in climate term for us, how the plant nutrients are used on the ground in the fields, we definitely have to do a better job collectively as a value chain to make sure that we use only as much as needed, that we use proper formulations for the optimal growth of our food, and make sure that we use the latest technologies to do all that.
Okay, great. But there are also certain critics that say that, fertilizers and then I think specifically inorganic fertilizers, they have a negative impact on soil health. What is your take on that?
That is, then we can have a good discussion about that. The research shows that fertilizers are both the culprit and the benefactor of the soil health. The soils that are undernourished cannot produce as much as soils that are properly nourished. And there's this concept, Marcel, in agriculture, which we often don't see, but those of us who are working in the sector understand that agriculture is like mining soils. So for the first year, you may not need to put anything in your soil and you get a decent yield. But that means that the plants have taken nutrients from the soil. And the next year, if you put nothing in, you get very little out. So soils need to be nourished, and they need to be nourished by proper nutrients, by fertilizers, by other nutrients that come in. And it is a fact that there are parts of the world where we use too much and we should not. And there are parts of the world where we definitely use too little and we are literally mining nutrients from soil. Example of little use or using way too little is sub-Saharan Africa, where farmers don't have access to plant nutrients, and therefore the yields don't reflect to what the science elsewhere is allowing us to get. The other thing that we need to think about is if we didn't use the fertilizers, we would use a lot more land to produce the same amount of calorific output. And we don't have that. They don't make it anymore. We cannot convert Amazon forest into agriculture. We cannot convert Congo forest into agriculture. So we have to find a way to produce what is needed from the soils that we have.
Yeah, very, very true. And that land saved factor is often an overlooked parameter that doesn't show up enough, in my opinion, in the various discussion. We save a lot of land by good fertilizer, by good genetics, and so on. So
By good
we
seeds,
need to keep that.
since we have the
Mhm.
ISF, by good seeds, by good plant nutrients, and by proper formulations, just using as much as we need in the right quantity at the right structure. That's what we
Yeah.
call the principles of 4R in plant nutrients.
Alzbeta, you already mentioned it before, especially the nitrogen part of fertilizer production requires a lot of energy and, as such, also produces a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. What is the fertilizer sector doing to reduce those emissions?
Great question. The fertilizer sector has started working on building blocks on emission reduction a couple of years ago. So in 2021, we teamed up with the International Energy Agency and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and we designed a global roadmap for reducing emission from the production of nitrogenous fertilizers. And that roadmap was presented at the COP in Glasgow. Since then, we have teamed up with Systemic, a consultancy in the UK, to prepare similar study for our scope 3 emissions, which is emissions on a farm. So we have prepared global roadmaps for scope 2 and for scope 3. Furthermore, we have taken those roadmaps on the road, if you will. We took them to Egypt and we took them to Turkey to design how it can be done in the local conditions, basically testing whether our global hypotheses are actually working in the local conditions. And I'm very happy to say that they are. Our Scope 3 study with Systemic has been highlighted by John Kerry, then US climate ambassador, as a first study of this type that the industry has undertaken. So when you look at industry, we know what we need to do, we know where we need to go, and we also have a good sense of what are the policies that will be helpful to speed up development of such technologies. And the United States Inflation Reduction Act is one such example of what can be done to spur the investment more concretely into blue ammonia, blue hydrogen, and that is already happening, as evidenced by the size of the investments already underway. So we have the roadmap where we want to go. We have tested it. We know what needs to be done, and we're actually doing it.
Wonderful. Great to hear that the studies that you're putting on the road indeed are having an effect. It's good news. Um, Alzbeta, you already mentioned it before, partner organization with ISF. Where do you see possibilities that the seed sector and the fertilizer sector can help each other?
The two sectors are part of the same value chain, and understanding each other and working with each other is sine qua non to be able to produce food efficiently, effectively, and sustainably. We have good cooperation already with the ISF through its leadership and through some of the working groups, and I would like to see that being developed further. But not only that, we also need to team up further down the value chain with the fast consumer group companies, FMCGs, producers of food, because we are essential steps for decarbonizing of their value chain or for making their value chains even more sustainable. So obviously, it starts with the seed and it starts with the soil, and it comes to plant nutrients. But I have to highlight that collectively, we have to include the rest of the value chain with us. We have done our first such meeting at the COP in Dubai, and it was very well received. So we intend to continue developing this kind of collaboration because it's only when the whole value chain works together when we get the outcome that we need to have.
Yeah, wonderful. Great to hear. Thank you so much, Alzbeta.